when it comes to being able to prioritise performance, we need to focus on the things that matter. And I have been doing that for myself personally. I try and do like an annual vision. What is my vision for the year? Because there are so many things we could be doing. If anyone's read the book 4,000 Weeks, it talks about on average, we have 4,000 weeks to live. So that's all we got. And even if we deprioritised everything we hate doing and only did the things we love, we still wouldn't have time to do all the things that we want to do. So that's quite scary when you think about that. How much time are we actually spending doing stuff that we don't want to do versus spending this time that we do want to do? So how can we think more about how we intentionally deprioritise? And when we do that in a work culture, what is the actual business objectives this year? What is it we're trying to do? What are some of the things that maybe we're getting caught up on? Let's have a meeting about this, or let's push this project forward. Is this important right now? Is this something that could be deprioritised? Do we all need to be in this meeting? Could this meeting be an email? Could this meeting be a voice note? Could it be a video? I have spent weeks and weeks going back and forth. An example actually from when I was working at Burberry, and I was in a meeting and there were 7 of us in the meeting, 2 directors, like 2 senior managers, and we had this meeting and then it was like, okay, so should we rearrange and have another call next week? And I was like, could we perhaps just one of us from one team and one of us from the others cut, and the rest of us just not join them at the call? And I was like, oh, I was so excited by the idea. It's like, we don't have to join the call. It's like, actually, if you look at the cost of how many of us and how many senior people are in this call, just this hour alone, and then the time it takes to rearrange, can we be thinking about who actually needs to catch up on this stuff, who doesn't need to catch up on this stuff? So much inefficiency when people are just stuck in meetings, stuck catching up about stuff that doesn't really matter. So many ways in which this creates an inefficiency in our system and the way that we're not able to then focus on the things that really, really matter. Micromanagement, no respect for focus time. It's like between the hours of 9 to 5, your meeting, your diary is for free game. Like you can have, we'll put in as many meetings as you can. Oh, if you need to do your work, well, you'll do that in the evening, right? No wonder these people are working in survival mode. No wonder they're fed up. No wonder they're actually not performing or hitting the targets they need to, because every meeting is more work, but not any time to actually do it. So how can you rethink about how you're approaching meetings? So you're giving people time to actually do their work, to be able to focus. What is it? What is the vision? What are we trying to achieve as a team? And what are our expectations as a team? And perhaps we are really clear that we don't expect people to be responding after a certain time at night. That, yes, we might have a million different platforms. Am I contacting you over Slack? Or is it Teams? Am I emailing you? Am I WhatsApping you? There's so many things. I know that I have been in the experience where you're just checking all of the platforms to check that you haven't missed anything urgent, and then not actually being able to focus and feeling that, oh, there must be something that I'm missing. I'm feeling that kind of survival mode kicking in. Perhaps there's expectations you can be sharing as a team where you say, if you're in focus time, nobody will bother you. We're not expecting you to answer emails, but if there's something urgent, we'll call you. And then you know, if I'm not being called, I can spend this time and I can focus. Or it's anything that has actions comes through via email, anything that isn't urgent will come through via Slack. You know, just for example, it's coming up with what those expectations are and not thinking about everything being urgent all the time, because is it realistically as urgent as it needs to be? I often think that we try as organisations, and I've seen this a lot when I'm working with kind of fast-growing startups, but it's such an intense time. We have to really, really go for it. It's like, but if it's always intense, you know, then when is it not intense? I remember listening to a podcast recently, and they were talking about the word priority. Priority is meant to be singular. It was only like in the past decade or two that we've made it a plural, because it's not supposed to be a plural. You're supposed to have that one priority and everything else is supposed to sit underneath it. But capitalism made it a plural. So what are our priorities? And I know I will do that. Well, I will write a list and I'm like, okay, these are my 15 priorities. And then I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I achieve none of them. I end the day feeling burnt out, frazzled, and I don't feel proud of myself. So I've started being like, what is my actual number one priority that I have to get done today? What's like my number 2 and my number 3? And then beyond that, it's nice to have. When we are organisations, we need to think about what are intense periods of time and how are we preparing for those? So if you work in, say, finance, for example, and you've got your end of year and you're working up to your end of year, then we understand that's going to be intense and people are going to have to really kind of step it up. But how are you preparing for that? How are you making sure that the quarter before that is perhaps a bit more restful, or that people are able to kind of equip themselves, get their toolkit ready, make sure that they have got enough petrol in the tank, to use an F1 reference, to make sure that you are able to get through that intense periods of time? And then how are you being conscious about how you rest and relax afterwards? So when is it actually needed? We're talking about that kind of singular priority. Peak, you can't be, for there to be a peak, there has to be a trough. So when you're saying yes to this intensity, when is there going to be the trade-off? When are you going to have those times of rest? How do you prepare and recover from each of these times? So, right, we're going through private equity. The next 6 months is going to be really intense. So how are we going to prepare, and how are we going to make sure that we're resting, recovering, and giving people that chance to kind of come back into performance mode afterwards? Is it urgent, or are we actually just too afraid to prioritise? I think so many people just say everything's urgent. Force yourself to pick one. Everything you say yes to, you have to say no to something else. So when you say yes to this, what are you prepared to say no to? You can't say yes to everyone. And once you actually start to think about the fact that it is a seesaw, and every yes, there is an equal and opposite no. And there might be times where you're saying, I'm saying yes to work and I'm saying no to going to the gym, or I'm saying no to spending time with my family. But next month, I'm saying yes to that, and I'm saying more no to this. How do you kind of have those peaks and troughs? What can we intentionally deprioritise? I've often found that much more helpful in thinking about not just what are my top priorities, but what are the things that really don't need to happen right now. An example from my personal life, I love DIY, I've got so much DIY to do in my house, but I've had to actively deprioritise it because otherwise I start just doing DIY, and I need to be working. And it's like, what do I do to make sure that I am taking time? August is a lot quieter in my work, so therefore August I'll do some DIY. And then whenever I think I should be doing that, I think, no, I've booked it for August, that's when I'm going to do it. So how do you deprioritise that stuff? How can you spend some time consciously thinking about what are we doing to put people in survival mode, and how can we take them out of that survival mode? What are some of the ways in which our culture is contributing to that? What is the noise that we need to strip out? And there might be some things that are outside of your control, but there may be things that are within your control. How do you, within your immediate team, think about how you are being more intentional about the meetings you have, being more intentional about the emails you send, the communications that you're having? And then what does your year look like, and how can you plan that year as much as you can, because there's so many factors that aren't within your control, but with the stuff that's within your control, how can you plan for times when you are going to be at peak performance, but then making sure that you have time to recover? Because if you just try to perform kind of at 80% all the year, then you don't have that space to go up to 100% or 110% when you need to.